We need to become sovereign individuals again.
Yeah.
That cannot be bought, purchased, swayed, convinced. Like, we can have that head on our shoulders again.
Yep.
And then if we're holding ourselves accountable to, then we can hold our local politicians accountable. Then we can hold state.
Because we'll have standards.
Exactly.
And we can hold those leaders accountable. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Solid. Today we have a special guest, Blake Norton, on. Jeff actually forgot about today. He lives such a great life that he completely spaced the podcast, but that's okay. Blake and I had a great conversation. And Blake actually helps us with producing our podcasts. He and his wife, Mal, do a great job. And I wanted to have him on, and there's so many different directions we could go with Blake. We've had an opportunity to spend a lot of time with him, out doing a little bit of hunting and in the outdoors. And today we talk a little bit about some things that maybe some people would consider conspiracy theories and things like that. And I would encourage you to just tune in and listen to that, not to scare you or anything else, but just to maybe be willing to open your mind up to possibilities out there. I think it's always a good thing to do. If we question our beliefs, it makes the beliefs we have stronger because it challenges them, right? So, or you find out that maybe some things that you thought were true aren't true, and you can adapt and make those changes. So, I think it was a really good episode today, man. Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
It's cool being here.
Yeah. So it was good. So, and also Blake, I mean, he's we talk a little bit about this too, but he grew up here in Utah, just has served in the military, and so one of our military heroes, and then also has been successful in business and in sales and in some leadership as well. So it was good to have him on today. So make sure, if you would, like, subscribe, leave comments, let us know what you think we can do better. And Solid 30 just kicked off today. Love to have all of you join us on that. You can start at any time. We're starting it officially today. And again, you can start at any time you want and make that part of your day. So thanks, guys. Good to have you on, Blake. We should have had you on a long time ago. You helped produce our podcast for one, and just do a great job with that. And you've lived quite a life and are an interesting fella. We've spent some time with you, man, hunting and out in the outdoors a little bit, and it's been fun. So I'm excited. We seriously probably should have had you on way before now. So, but we wanted to build up. We wanted to make sure we had enough episodes, had a little bit of credibility out there before we brought in the power of Blake Norton.
Oh, thanks, man. I don't know. I wouldn't call it power, but I definitely have lived a different. There's some stuff that's happened that's different for sure. But I don't feel like I've accomplished a ton yet. But it's humbling to hear that. I appreciate that. But I like hanging out with you. You and Jeff are hilarious, man. And I think we're going to get into a lot more adventures.
Oh, yeah. We're just starting. You've only been in a few of this so far.
Few.
The last one was pretty good.
It was good, man. I mean, you only got your Tacoma stuck in 3 feet of mud twice. 2 times in one day.
I'm a little embarrassed about that.
Yeah.
First time it was understandable.
Yeah, it was understandable. Like, we all were like, okay, yeah, but 2-time, man, like, we're going to call you the 2-time.
Yeah.
2-time back-to-back.
Well, I own
your
it.
truck stuck twice, champion.
I can own it. So, that second time was on me 100%.
It was cool, though. We got to work on our excavation skills, digging out a truck, and also we made a dam. We made a dam to
stop the water
flow. We're like, maybe that would help. I think it did. I'd like to think that hour-long.
Yeah. I don't know if we would have ever got out of that second one without some help.
And I think that's documented too on your Instagram, my Instagram. So if people want to check that out, you can find it. Yeah.
The new Tacomas, have you seen those?
Yeah, they just launched the front end looks way meaner.
Oh, dude, they look awesome.
Because I always get one and then I'm like, that looks cool. But then the new one comes out, I'm like,
well, I was all excited about the Ford Ranger Raptor, and then they went woke. So nope, they're done.
That's right.
Toyota's probably right behind them. But
oh man, well, have you heard? That's maybe what we could dive into then, if you want to go conspiracies. But
do whatever. I think you should tell us who you are a little bit first, though. I think you should tell us where you grew up and a little bit of background, so we know who we're talking to here. Because you're a credible source. You've got your reasoning for the beliefs you have.
Absolutely. I hope so. I don't know about credible, but yeah, I just grew up in Utah. I was just a normal Mormon boy, Utah County area, and joined the Marine Corps right out of high school. And I was in the Marine Infantry for about 6 years. Good times, good stuff. But yeah, and then I got out and did some contracting work for good old Uncle Sam. Mm-hmm. I think, and I told you before, I don't think it's time for me to go into that yet, because I still have plans to do some stuff later, and it could be detrimental if I spill the beans on a podcast. So
cool.
And
that's all right.
I think I've been on a few podcasts and spilled some of the beans, like maybe 1 or 2 beans.
Okay. They're out there somewhere.
There's some beans out there. But yeah, man, I guess what else do you want to know? I mean, what's your structure for these normally?
You record them. You produce them.
I know. I'm too busy. If I'm here, it's Mal's on the computer most of the time, but she's just focusing on the camera angles and production value. But
yeah. I don't know. Do you want to talk about the woke stuff?
Sure. Well, to give you some background, I like to tell everybody, like I working for Uncle Sam in a couple different ways, being in the military, and then having just a head on your shoulders. Anybody that has a head on their shoulders these days, it's few and far between. I think a lot of people have been forced to kind of wake up and critically think more. So I think more people are thinking critically, have a head on their shoulders. But I started seeing the curtain flutter, and I lifted it up and saw the ankles of the Wizard of Oz, right? Because you kind of like the jig is up. I realize the simulation is a simulation or whatever. That's a whole nother theory, simulation theory. But yeah, working closely with some government entities was like mind-boggling.
You saw a lot of things that
I saw enough for me to pursue more answers, and then I had proximity to people who could tell me a lot from their experiences, guys with 20 plus years in 3-letter agencies and stuff like that. And I don't know, it's, my whole adult life has been kind of shucking, like you would shuck an ear of corn, just like peeling off these like layers of like programming that has been installed in our culture, like all the way back to a couple generations, like even pre-World War I, pre-World War II kind of era. But yeah, like America, since World War II, we've just never been the good guys anymore. It's we serve corporations now. We serve all these entities that are unknown.
So what changed back then? What was it that you say since World War II? So what happened?
So almost every conspiracy is like linked together. And so what I've been able to piece together, of course, this is conjecture. This is my opinion mixed with a lot of stuff that's out there, a lot of information that's available. I am very firm in one thing. You should only have one absolute in your life. That should never be absolute. That's the only absolute thing you should do. And that direct quote is from a modern day samurai named Travis Haley. He's like in the gun world, he's an excellent shooter, teacher, makes a lot of gear. So if you look up Travis Haley, he's got a cool story, but he says that you should never be absolute. That's the only thing that you should be absolute about, is always be willing to adapt and adjust and look at new information. And so what changed, I think, years ago, if we go way back in time, there's so many places to pin it, but the one I like to pin it to is like 1947, Roswell, New Mexico. And pretty convinced, not sure, don't know. I'm pretty convinced that like an alien craft landed in Roswell, or crash landed rather. It was covered up. That's like the whole incident that kicked things off. But the military industrial complex was already, some people call it the cabal, they call it the Illuminati, whatever you want to label it as, or, from a more religious standpoint, like LDS members, we'd call it like the secret combinations. Basically, it's just the inner workings, I think, of the devil, of the negative energies of this world have come together and kind of just hijacked a lot of resources, hijacked a lot of power to push their agenda forward. And it's not like, it's so hard because it's not a front. It has a front. It's not evil. Like our enemies don't wear uniforms anymore. Like we haven't fought a war in our lifetime, there's never been a war against like an actual principality or like a country.
It's all been secret
It's
service.
all been secret. Yeah. Guerrilla warfare against an ideal driven group of radicals. Right. Same thing with like, I guess Vietnam technically, but then you had the Viet Cong, which were like an entire irregular warfare force. And so you kind of have
maybe Desert Storm a little bit.
Desert Storm a little bit.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah. Desert Storm, we fought against, well, we just steamrolled through there as much as we could. Same thing with Iraq.
But then after that, it was all like
insurgency, idealism, extremism. And so I think the military industrial complex is the culprit here, or this cabal, whatever you want to call it. But they started seizing power in right after World War II, I think, is when they really started shifting power. And that was in 1947. A craft landed and was back engineered over the years. And anti-gravitics kind of stepped on the scene. But guess who was ahead of that? Was the Nazis. So the Nazi regime had so much tech. That's why Russia and us were racing to get to Berlin. Whoever could get there quicker could harvest and reap the most benefits from the Nazi regime. You know, rocket engines, jets, like they were just years ahead of us. So there's this whole theory, a whole conspiracy that Hitler escaped, right? He didn't die, and he ended up dying in like Argentina. And do you know who Tim Kennedy is? He's done a lot of research on this. He's a former special forces guy. You know, he's in the gun world. But they've gone and like hunted Nazis in like South America, him and his team. It's crazy to listen to, but a lot of them, and it's documented. They've all fled down to South America. But the tip of the cherry on top of the conspiracy is that German U-boats actually found like aqueducts with fresh water and kind of like natural. What do you call those? But like cave formations that like hot springs and stuff like that in the Antarctic ice. And they found these and started building these underground bases. People say there's like an ancient civilization there. They uncovered like pyramids that are twice as big as Giza. By the way,
all underground,
under the ice of Antarctica, right? And so a lot of people say they got help from extraterrestrials, whatever you want to say. And then there's like, they used Antarctica to like launch anti-gravity craft to the moon and stuff like that, and they have a base on the moon. There's been all sorts of crazy things, but it's very likely that Hitler actually escaped and they had facilities that we couldn't get to in Antarctica. Excuse me. Just because of the technology they had. And so what the cherry on top of this too, or what makes it so crazy, is that we won the war technically, but the Nazi remnant was not dead. They were thriving in Antarctica on these bases. A remnant. Now, they weren't big enough to go invade or do anything. They were in a very defensive posture. But in the 50s, I think it was 1950, 52, there's a guy, you can look him up. He's a Medal of Honor recipient during the wars, Admiral Richard E. Byrd. Like, you know the Dos Equis commercial? It's like, he's the most interesting man in the world. Like, that was really him. Like Richard E. Byrd, he was like the last great explorer. He was the first guy to fly a plane over the North and South Pole. And he'd been on a few private excursions to Antarctica. And then the U.S. government sent an entire battle group down to Antarctica for training. It's called Operation High Jump. It's all documented now. You can go look it up. But it doesn't make sense. Why would you send a full battle group down there with full, like, you know, armament, full supply, everything? And they went there to conduct training in Antarctica. It's like you could easily do that, you know, in Greenland or in, you know, in the North Pole. It's closer.
Yeah, right.
So they went down there with a full battle group, and they came back missing ships, and like 300 people had died. And then people on their deathbed in the 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s, they were reporting what happened. And Richard E. Byrd, during that excursion, he said he flew over an opening in the earth, this is kind of where like the hollow earth theory comes from, but he flew into a huge opening and was in the inner earth and all this crazy stuff. And he's a Medal of Honor recipient, naval admiral, right? Admiral Richard E. Byrd, war hero. Like, the guy has no reason. He's nothing to gain. He's already gained it. And here he is telling you on live TV as well. You can find clips of him on TV talking about this, how there's these huge swaths of land beyond the South Pole that have more resources than the entire North American continent, and how we can go populate that, and how America has secured it and stuff. But anyway, they got attacked by a Nazi remnant is the theory. And they had these UFO craft, these discs, they call it the Nazi bell because it looks like a bell, or like a disc-shaped craft that actually popped out of the water and used like heat rays and stuff to sink these ships. And this is documented stuff that happened in the 50s. So then the theory is that the government and the Nazi remnant were kind of negotiating back and forth, sort of trying to swap for technology. There's also a newspaper clipping article of, I think it was when Eisenhower was in office or leaving office. I'm a little fuzzy on it. I got to brush up. But basically, like 12 UFOs were spotted hovering over the White House for like 6 hours. And it made the paper. It was printed in the Washington, D.C. Post and everything. Basically, people have come forward and said, yeah, they were playing hardball with this Nazi remnant. So to flex their muscles, they put these UFOs over the White House. And that's when Eisenhower was leaving office. If you go watch his exit office speech, it's like charring. You've probably heard about that, right? When he's leaving office, he's like, the military industrial complex is taken over. Like, he's basically telling us they're gonna start taking your freedoms away. They're gonna start executing their thing. And he's just telling every American to be vigilant. And so that's where I think it happened. To answer your question in a very long roundabout way, I think our government, after that Nazi remnant kind of flexed their muscles, I think we merged with them. We were already doing it. If you've heard of Operation Paperclip.
No.
So Operation Paperclip, to sum it up, was after we had, or the war was over, and everybody thinks that we won the war. I don't think there was a real winner, who got the victory. It was whoever came out with the most benefit afterwards. I think that was definitely us. Yeah. Russia paid the highest price. Number one, because they're Russians and they don't think well and they don't do good tactics. But number two, like they had a very stubborn, stalwart spirit that like probably won the Nazis, like defeated the Nazis, I would say. We just delivered the killing blows, I think. But they did the bulk of the fighting. So then we made out of there like a bandit, and we took all these Russian scientists. They were Nazi SS officers that had committed so many atrocities, and we just kind of wiped their records and folded them into American society and science and education and other things like that, but mainly like rocketry, NASA, all of NASA. Like, there's only a couple differences between NASA and Nazi, like phonetically. Like, a lot of people dive into that, and it's weird. If you look at NASA today, everything that NASA does is completely fake. Right in front of us today. And it's just like a home staple. Like, oh yeah, we walked on the moon. Did we? Or was that a Hollywood production? Like, I think we went to the moon. I just don't think we went there how they say we did. Yeah. Like, if you think Neil Armstrong was just lying to us? I think they went to the moon in a different way. I don't think we went there in a rocket. There's so many records of him talking about being watched by entities and other craft as they landed on the moon. I don't think it was live. Like, who in their right mind would put like, we've never done this before, where it's the most dangerous mission that man could be sent on, to go orbit the moon in this tin can that we've created. And we've never tested it. We've never tested it to this length. Like, they did a ton of tests, right? But we've never landed on the moon. And then they broadcast that on live TV. You got to be kidding me. And I think it was Nixon or the president called them like from a landline, and there was no delay. Like, if you Zoom somebody in India, like on a Zoom call, there's still a delay. Yeah, right. Even with all our high tech stuff. True. But yeah, he communicated to him. But anyway. So why do you think, your opinion, because people are listening, go, okay, why do I need to know all this? What, in your opinion, why does this stuff matter? Because we're all living our lives, right? Yeah. And we live in the greatest country in the world, and I believe that. Even though there's maybe some of these crazy things underground that are happening all around us. Oh, totally. Right. These secret combination type underground things, right? Why do we need to know? Why is that important? Because, and I think we'll get into this, but I mean, we're seeing what's happening
today in our faces now. It's like it's all coming. It seems like it's coming. All the conspiracies are no longer being conspiracies.
They're becoming fact.
They're becoming facts,
validated. Yeah, that's a great question, man, because the real reason I think that drives me to talk about this stuff, like I have no problem with people thinking I'm a lunatic, because I've been on these topics since 2010 or earlier. As long as I could read, I've always thought weird stuff was happening. And then I got the opportunity to kind of get validated in some of that. But the reason is that we are being deceived, right? Because here's the real trick. If you're a Christian, I know you are, if anyone listening is a Christian, or if you believe in a positive and a negative entities that kind of sway us, the devil is so cunning. The devil is not against good morals. He doesn't have any problem with good morals. He's only against Jesus Christ. The devil is 100% against God and Christ. He doesn't mind good morals. And so America has been a country, the greatest country, right, that solved a ton of problems, that's done so much, that's innovated so much, and it's been hijacked. And I don't think there's an organization on the planet today, and I might ruffle some feathers here with saying this, but like any church, any religion, any organization that's run by man, any government, any entity is not exempt from this level of deception. It's been embedded in the very foundation of like Western civilization. So I think it's important to know these things, to understand that we need now more than ever people and strong men, strong women, solid men, solid women. Mm-hmm. By the way, kickoff of Solid 30 today.
That's right.
That's why I wear the hat.
We got to talk about that a little bit. Yeah.
But we need stronger people that are truly sovereign individuals, that are truly clear thinking, moral, sovereign people that can provide for themselves, that don't need to rely on the system, on these things. Because we always joke about it, like, oh, what phone do you have? We were joking about it earlier. Yeah. It's like translation, if we simplify it down, which rectangle do you prefer the government to spy on you with? Mm-hmm. Oh, I prefer Apple. I prefer. Yeah. It's all the same.
Yeah, I don't think that's any shouldn't be too much of a debate. I mean, the fact is, if you have a phone, you know
exactly
you're being exposed to whatever. Yeah. You know,
it's these tools are not bad, right? The tools are not bad. The technology is not bad. It's just the intention behind those tools, right? Mm-hmm. And the time of ignorance is completely gone. We cannot just be American citizens and just say over and over again that we're the greatest country in the world. Yeah. Because we are a slice of that. Yep. You and I, every American is a slice of that greatness. And if we're mediocre and we all accumulate to just a bunch of mediocre people, yep, it's nothing.
Yeah, and I mean, I think there's got to be. I mean, until we get back to putting God first as a country, yeah, we will never be a great country again. We'll never be the greatest country again. So that's everybody's going, who do I vote for? Well, God's got to be number one, right? And you don't vote for God. You turn to God, right? And you start following Him. And I think that there's seems to me like there's so much lack of standards today. Like that's not my truth. That's not, I want to do it this way, or someone else wants to do it another way. Instead of, look, there's morals and ethics. Mm-hmm. There's virtues, right? There's things that are right and things that are wrong.
Exactly.
And there's got to be. There's got to be some of that there. As soon as you get rid of, I don't know how to explain it. You get rid of standards. You get rid of, where do you go, right?
And that's where I think, like, at the purest form, I think everybody knows what's right and wrong, and you get there by the culture, right? The culture that you're born into is kind of the first thing you pick up. What's the microculture of your family? When you learn how to walk and talk, and like you watch your mom spill the milk, and how she reacts like determines how you are. Yeah. Right. And what the problem is, over generations, what's been influencing that microculture of the family is not good. It's our accountability there has been slowly stripped away. Oh, out of convenience, we'll take this over for you. We'll take it. We got it. Yep. So now the government is literally over the parent's shoulder, whispering, "Oh, hey, you should do that. You should do this." Yeah. Look at public education. Look at all these things. And so that's why I pin it down to that 1947 because you've probably heard the saying, the military has some advanced technology. They're always like 20 years ahead. They were saying that in the 40s, but that curve is exponential. So like our technologies here, there's technology that's out there that our government has, that this military industrial complex has, that's so advanced. It's probably 500, 600, 700 years more advanced than what we have right now. Like if we're getting these on a mass level, what's the next step?
Oh.
If Elon Musk is being allowed to make a brain chip, what do they have behind the scenes? You know, and that's what I say is being allowed, because they've infiltrated every organization. Look at education, look at pharmaceuticals, look at big pharma, medicine, all of that stuff. Look at the technology that's available to us. 100 years ago, we were using carrier pigeons to talk over battlefields, right?
Yeah.
And nowadays, I can call anyone in the world with this anywhere at any time. So look at the gap over 100 years. But 100 years ago, we were also starting a combustion engine. And today, you still drive a combustion engine. So look at medical. Like, 100 years ago, it was Civil War, or even the Civil War, they were just like cutting off a leg.
Yeah.
Oh, you got a little scratch from a cannonball, it's infected, they just cut the whole leg off.
Right.
It's like he's going to die. But nowadays, like look at the amount of medical. Like we have CAT scans, we have MRIs, we have quick clot, like tourniquet. We just understand so much more. But like all these areas have advanced so fast. But like, what hasn't advanced? Oh, well, we're still using, combustion engines and fossil fuels for the oil industry. And so that kind of is an indicator. It's like, okay, at some point along the line, the entities that we're supposed to trust, the governments, the religions, whatever you want to call it, they've all accumulated knowledge and stuff where we haven't. So the sovereign individual has no longer become sovereign. We've become reliant. And that's why it's so important to discuss these things. That's why people get so hell-bent about a conspiracy theory, because they know deep down, they're like, man, like we're missing something here. We're missing something, and we're just trying to identify it over and over and over again. So we start connecting the dots. I think some people take it a little too far and they connect everything they possibly can. And somebody was telling me, they're like, Blake, you just like to connect dots. And I'm like, yeah, why do I like to connect dots? They're like, I don't know, it's satisfying to you. I'm like, no, if you connect enough dots, it creates a picture. So like, we're not supposed to not connect the dots. Like, what do you recommend in other, like, what should I be doing? Should I just be drinking the Kool-Aid then? Yeah. And they were like, I kind of just laid into them. I'm like, I'm so sorry that I've inconvenienced you with this uncomfortable possibility that I've connected.
Well, we all want to believe in the good overtaking the bad, and so we want to believe, and you can probably talk more about this stuff too, but like John F. Kennedy's assassination to September 11th to Bin Laden to
it's all tied together,
on and on and on. And, we obviously, there's people we look at as heroes. And I see you as serving in our military as one of our heroes, right? We just barely celebrated Memorial Day. I am so grateful for all those who fight for our country. Yeah. And so we naturally want to believe in that. So when we hear something like, September 11th was a setup from our very own governments, let's say that's a conspiracy out there. It's
horrifying.
Right? Yeah. And you may argue it's not a conspiracy, it's fact. But maybe we can talk about that a little bit, because I don't know. I think it's possible to still believe in the good, and those people who went and fought these wars and killed evil people, they still did honorable things.
Absolutely.
The sad part is were they manipulated into doing something that should have never had to be done in the first place because of these things that happened, let's say back in 1947 that you're talking about, right?
Yes.
Forward.
Yeah, it says in the Bible, it says in the scriptures of many types, there's similar analogies or stories to this, but the devil, this negative energy of the world, will pull you down with flax and cord, right? It will be dressed up almost identical. Like, there's not any indicators if there's an evil person standing next to you or a righteous, good person. There's not much. You can't go off of that, off sight alone. Like, you really have to get into the core values of a person, and that's really hard to do. You never know somebody until you start getting to know them, right? And so the enemy, the adversary, the devil, is so cunning that all of the goodness that is America, all of the Christian morals, all of everything that's good about America has just been steered and used for ill-gotten gains, I think.
And if you read the book, there's actually a book called Outwitting the Devil. If people would read that,
I love that
because that was written in the 20s, I think.
Yeah, late 20s, early 30s.
Yeah, Napoleon Hill, right? And it didn't get published until, I think, 2010-ish, right in there. And he has an interview with the devil, and the devil talks about all these things he's going to do. Yeah. This is before any of this stuff was happening.
Exactly, dude.
And you go back and you go, he's done that and doing that. Right, yeah. Do the things that he talks about on that. So people ought to get. They got to read the book and listen to the audiobook, I think, if you haven't done it. It's really good.
That's probably my favorite book of all time. I've read it 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
Because growing up religious, growing up in the Mormon faith, as you did, and then having been exposed to some of this corruption, seeing how our government works, doing all that, like I had no choice. I didn't know anymore. I didn't know any longer. I didn't feel good about being affiliated with these groups. And maybe that's a time I can go into detail about that in another podcast later when I'm able to talk about some more detail of why and what level of corruption I was facing there. But the complacency of our organizations, I don't care if it's a religion, if it's a government, even our military, the complacency is like, it's insane. It's so chalked up to an ideal, like America is the best, like we're awesome. We're the heroes. We're the good guys. And that's where it ends. Nobody questions anything further. If you do, it used to get treated really weird, but even during 9/11, everybody could see what was going on. Mm-hmm. They got ridiculed, right? Mm-hmm. Because there was so much emotion involved with that. Everybody just wanted an enemy to go fight.
Yep.
And that's what it was there for. It's all social engineering. It's all irregular warfare. It's being conducted on us. And so when you see the very best and the brightest and the most elite of America, right? We all put a Navy SEAL in front of you. Put Jocko Willink out there. Like all those guys.
Yeah, Robert O'Neill, right?
Robert O'Neill. Exactly, man. They're like the epitome of American men. They're the best.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely the best. Our military offers some fantastic people. There's always some bad eggs in every group, but they're so awesome. And we put them up on a pedestal as we should. But it doesn't matter if the whole ship is misguided.
Yeah,
we're gonna run aground.
Well, that's the thing. It's like the ultimate betrayal to all of us as Americans.
It is.
So because if you really start breaking, I've read into a bunch of stuff about like I said, President Kennedy's assassination and September 11th, and it just when you start looking at all the facts, you go, it doesn't add up to the way that the news portrayed it happening, the media portrayed it happening. There's a lot more to it. I mean, even to the extent of those planes were not passenger planes that went through the towers, right?
No.
And the towers didn't fall because they melted. They were brought down, and all those type of things.
Controlled demo. I'm going to blow your mind today with some stuff that so like let's say an event happens, right? And the mainstream media feeds the public what they want. Oh, it was terrorists that hit 9/11. And so,
because we want to believe it, we believe it, right? And I think we got to be careful with that with everything, right? We should always question, should I believe this? What's the source?
Exactly. And, what's the source? How do I feel? Are my emotions being manipulated? Do I have all the facts? Do I need to make a decision?
Mm-hmm.
Like, can I sit on the fence for a while? Like, can I observe? Can I find stuff? So those are all questions we should be asking. So that was what happened. The mainstream media feeds the main body of citizens, all this garbage. And then some people were like, hey, something's up here. And here's the trick. The government and these entities, so mainly CIA, the CIA has mastered this of propaganda control. So some people started catching on. They're like, this is weird. 9/11 is weird. The I guess it started with the Kennedy assassination. And these will be all tied here in a second, but 1947, Roswell happened. 1952, Richard E. Byrd went to Antarctica, and they got like a large portion of their forces obliterated. Came back with 300 dead from training exercises, right? Weird. And then later comes out that the Nazis had all this craft. It's basically inferred that the Nazis melded with our government, created NASA, all this stuff. So like Werner von Braun was a former SS officer who ran a labor camp, basically killed a ton of Jews, created the Saturn V rocket that got us to the moon, but we already had the anti-gravity tech. Anyway, all that leading up to the formation of a secret space force is never talked about. And this is so important for 9/11. There's a secret space force. We've already been to the moon. We'd already been there before NASA sent guys there. It was all a front. Fake moon landing footage. We went to the moon for sure.
How do you know this?
This is, if you go back and watch it, right? If you go back and listen to these things. So go listen to Richard E. Byrd. Go look at some other stuff that came out in the 90s and in the 80s about Area 51 sites and Nellis Air Force Base. And basically, I was told by some people by one guy, for a 6-hour car ride, I said something to the effect of like, yeah, we'll get those terrorists one day. Like, we'll make them pay. And every one of these guys, they were all agency dudes. For those of you to give you one more context, like I did some contracting work. That's about all I'm obliged to say at the moment after I got out of the Marines. But these guys, they laughed at me for 6 hours in a car ride. And they're all like your age, and I'm like a 22-year-old kid, right? I'm the newest of the new guys.
They're like, you're crazy,
They're
dude.
like, you dumb, dude. Like, if you're going to work with us, like, you need to know everybody in these agencies, like most everybody knows. Anybody that has a head on their shoulders, we all know it was an inside job. And so starting from 9/11, because that's what made me join the military. I saw the towers fall when I was in
So you're 22, and now you're being told this new information. You're going,
I'm like, what is happening?
Yeah.
And so they're telling me, they're like, yeah, we have craft. Like, so starting with 9/11, I guess I'm not as well versed in explaining this big picture. So forgive me if this podcast doesn't make sense. But let's start with 9/11 and we'll backwards go. So we'll back engineer it. So 9/11, we were told that planes hit the towers and they collapsed. And the CIA has let a lot
and that's what we saw.
That's what we saw.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what we were told.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so much missing out of that picture. But the CIA, all this whole conspiracy community came about from this, right? And you've probably heard it's thermal charges, it's all these things, it's controlled demolition,
and by the way, there was a bunch of money
oh yeah, so much
involved with this.
Right.
That they had to create this problem over here to distract from the...
Yes. Yeah, there was the day before 9/11, the Pentagon was talking about there was a congressional hearing about the Pentagon losing $5 billion or some ridiculous amount, like hundreds of billions, I think. I can't remember. But they were missing so much money in black funding, and then the financial wing of the Pentagon got blown up. A plane didn't hit it. And then 9/11 happened that same day. We all know that, what was shown to us.
And do you think President Bush had some...
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So to give you...
Which he looked like a hero there.
Oh, he did. Yeah. There's so much things. So the negative energies of the world, the devil, they have to tell us what they're doing, and we have to figure it out. It's like the laws of God and nature, I think. They always show their hand. It's like a criminal who leaves his calling card. Like they want to like foreshadow it for us, and then we figure it out later. But 9/11 happened. The towers fell because of an orbital weapons platform in space, an energy weapon.
So the Pentagon was missing $2.3 trillion.
$2.3 trillion
trillion dollars
was missing.
Unallocated for. So
that was the reason behind this whole
thing
attack.
And I submit to the audience my opinion from what I've studied, that $2.3 trillion has gone to a secret space force since the 40s. I'm a firm believer that we have a colony on the backside of the moon, that we already have people on Mars. I'm a firm believer in a craft called a TRB-3. It's a triangular shaped anti-gravitic craft. What they do, kind of synopsisize it, or to summarize it, they basically put two magnets, giant magnets, like as big as your house, right? Or however big the craft is. They're huge magnets, and they're disc shape, and they're opposing each other. So they push them down as close as possible, and they spin one clockwise, one counterclockwise. Ties into all of the stuff from the craft, from stuff that Nikola Tesla did. And they can basically create an electromagnetic field strong enough to create local gravity. So it can go from 0 to Mach 9 in like a split second. And it's local gravity, so you won't feel a thing. You could be sipping a cup of coffee, 0 to Mach 9, you wouldn't even feel it. Doing a 90-degree turn at Mach 9 would turn you into jello, but because you're on local gravity, doesn't happen. So this TRB-3, by the way, the Air Force has a space facility in Colorado that's like 2 or 3 times bigger than NASA in Florida. So just to give you an idea, but it's basically Navy and Air Force that run this
in Colorado,
this Space Force, and Antarctica as well. There's a bunch of facilities there. Antarctica is interesting because it's the longest standing treaty in modern times, like ever. And we all, like in the 40s, right around this time, in the 50s, right when this Nazi remnant was supposedly found, every like major company or country agreed to the Antarctic Treaty, where no one can use it for military things or anything. It's only for research. No one can go there. Just leave it off limits. Really, really weird stuff going on in Antarctica. So Antarctica, Richard E. Byrd found that, guys. The White House probably partnered with Nazis. JFK was going to blow the lid off the whole thing, the secret Space Force and the technology that they have and what they're using it for, and the military.
Was human trafficking an issue back with JFK as well? Was he also going to expose any of that back then, or is that a whole?
I think so.
Yeah, maybe.
I think so. It's really important. A lot of the human trafficking needed to sustain these like rituals and these demonic things that they do is so crucial. But yeah, that's a great question.
I don't know. I mean, I just
not sure.
Was curious.
I would imagine so. I think just like any type of sex work or anything, it's one of the longest professions, they say, that's ever been around. As long as humans have had sexual vices, they've always used trafficking in some way like that, or pedophilia. So it's been around forever. It's never going away. It's a human condition. So, but yeah, that leaded up to 9/11. 9/11, whether the planes crashed in there or not, doesn't matter. It was those things were basically,
they wouldn't have fallen.
No, they were basically melted from orbit on an electromagnetic weapons platform,
like a microwave type deal.
A microwave, very similar. And here's how I know why. So talking to those guys, if you understand that there's a secret Space Force, and in the 90s and early 2000s, actually right around 9/11, there's a guy named, I think, Robert McKinnon. McKinnon is his last name, but he's a British hacker. For a year, he hacked into NASA and to naval archives from England. He hacked into American databases just using like remote desktop controllers and using like simple passwords like password or like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And he got into like some high level stuff. And since 2001 till now, the U.S. has been trying to extradite him and try him for treason and stuff, but he's worked his way around it. I should probably look into an update on what he's doing if he's still alive. But anyway, he went public with a bunch of information. He said he found Excel spreadsheets talking about shipments leaving twice a week to the moon from the planet. He found a list of non-terrestrial based service members and officers that are not based on this planet. He found a list of USS or United States ships. That's what USS stands for. Of U.S. ships that are not serving on any active waters on the ocean. And he found all this stuff, shipments going to the moon, all sorts of weird stuff. And he went public with it, and it got buried over because of 9/11, because of all that and everything like that. Gary. I said Barry, I think. So I was close. I was one letter off.
Yeah, we need facts, Mal.
Yeah, we need some substance. Yeah. So, and don't take what I'm saying seriously. Like, you'll probably have some people in the comments being like, "This dude's an idiot." And like, I am an idiot. Okay, I'm totally stupid.
But you're interesting,
yes,
and that's what I like about it. And it makes me think and look into stuff,
and it makes your skin crawl a little bit.
Yeah,
like, oh my gosh. So there's a lady named Judy Wood. I have her book. It's not a book. It's a damn textbook, dude. I'll bring it over for you. It's called "Where Did the Towers Go?" And she breaks this down. And I was told this back in a decade ago plus, when I was brand new to this contracting game. I was told this. Yeah, it was an energy weapon from space, and we all thought he was just nuts. And then he went on a rant for about 6 hours, and I was just information download, like, what? So anyway, he started talking about all these craft we have, bases on the moon, Mars, energy weapon from orbit that's actually basically, there's no term for it. So this lady, she's dedicated her entire life to the study of 9/11 and what happened. She's the only conspiracy theory lady or individual out there that's actually been like just brutally passed over. Like everything that's gone wrong in her life has, like, anything that could go wrong has gone wrong. Like she's just been squashed. So the CIA, they go in and they latch onto a conspiracy. And they coin new terms like conspiracy theorist. That was coined during JFK. Anybody that thought something was weird, they were just, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. And it gave the public something to slander. And so now it's like in common household things. Like, oh, you're such a conspiracy theorist. You got your tinfoil hat on, right? So anybody that critically thinks nowadays can get that immediately social kickback. It's genius. So all these theories about the conspiracy have come out. No, it was thermite charges. So now it was this, it was that, it was controlled demolition. Jet fuel can't melt steel beams, right? All this stuff. Nobody listened to Judy Wood until 2016. She published her book, and it's nuts. Okay, so to give you some context, it was no doubt an energy weapon, whether it was from orbit or in the basement or something, because so much of the tower is missing. 120 stories collapsed down. Like that should have been about 27 stories high of rubble.
And it was like gone.
It was barely 2 stories. Like there was a firefighter in the main lobby of Tower 1 when it collapsed. And he thought he was dead because he's a firefighter. They're basically like, they minor in engineering, so they know. And he's like, I'm dead. He's like, I'm never going to see the sunlight again. 15 minutes later, the dust had settled. He could see blue sky.
Wow.
Yeah.
He was in the tower.
In the lobby on the main floor. And
wow.
he's a survivor, right? 3,000 people died on 9/11. Horrible, horrific. Guess how many people chose to willingly jump from a building? Over 1,400 of those 3,000.
Whoa.
Guess how many people, in all of the historical stats that we have in any type of building catastrophe of a high rise, right? Like in early New York or England or wherever. Guess what the percentage is of jumpers that willingly jump?
No,
it's like
hardly any.
0.0001, or maybe there's 2 zeros, like 0.001. People actually choose to jump.
So people weren't just jumping from those top floors. They were jumping from all
the entire building,
which wouldn't make sense because all the heat would have been up on the top.
Well, here's where it gets crazy. If you put a wet rag in the microwave, or let's say you put a dry rag in the microwave for a minute, what happens to that
Nothing,
rag?
Right?
It might get a little warm just because of the natural moisture in the air. If you put a wet rag in the microwave, what happens?
I don't know.
It boils.
Okay. Yeah.
It'll boil your skin. You touch that rag, you're going to burn. So us being 70% water, like we're beings that are made of mainly water and liquid, right? So you're in a tower. You have 5 kids at home. You have 2 kids at home. You got a beautiful wife. You got a great job at the World Trade Center. You're making over $100K a year, which in 2001 was killer, right? You have everything going for you, and you choose to throw yourself out of a building, right? So also, those people, about every 30 to 45 seconds, the firefighters were saying people were hitting the ground, splatting. So what would make you, imagine you with all your success, your beautiful family, if you were trapped in that building, what would make you jump?
I mean, I guess excruciating pain, right?
Exactly.
I don't know. Yeah.
So fire suppression systems kick on. You're soaked to the bone. You're wet. You're sweaty. You can't breathe. Almost every jumper that jumped was like either half naked or fully naked. So what makes you in a crisis? Because I've been trained, and you have a lot of common sense, and you've trained yourself over a lifetime to be a hunter. In a situation of adrenaline, is your first instinct to rip your clothes off and jump?
No way.
No way. But I tell you what, if you're being microwave blasted, if you're being burned alive from the inside out, boiled alive from the inside out, this is what nobody's talking about. Why did 1,400 people with great paying jobs and excellent lives and plenty of stuff to live for, why did they choose to jump?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Wow.
So that's the thing.
Dude, we could go all day on this, but we probably need to start wrapping up here a little bit just because I've got to go. But
you're limited today.
But I think just as we hear this stuff, I think it's important to kind of, again, I think question the narrative and because when it comes to, what can we do today to help combat this stuff? Obviously, we can get our own houses in order.
Exactly.
Right? Like we're doing the Solid 30 Challenge this month, which definitely helps with that in a big way. And that's really what we can control. And if we can control our own world, life's going to be good, right? We can't control this on the outside. However, I think it's great to kind of, question what we're told, because when it comes to voting, right, we want to vote the right people in and the wrong people out. And who's behind all this, right? We don't have time to get into that today, but who's behind all of these things that are happening? And that's kind of what's crazy. It's almost like, hey, who do you vote for today? Yeah. Who do you? Well, who's really on the right? Who's really on the wrong?
On that note, too, it's like it's all rigged. We have 37 flavors at Baskin-Robbins, but we have 2 political parties to choose from. Mm-hmm. Like, there's no representation for any of us. So Democrat, Republican don't matter. It's just there to divide, right? It really doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. And I might sound unpatriotic for this. It does not matter who you vote for at a federal level. Mm-hmm. So we have to reverse engineer it. Let's hold ourselves personally accountable, right? Yep. How am I doing with my faith? And that's why I like you guys so much. The Solid with the 5 F's: faith, family, fitness, finance, friends. It's so amazing. That's where we need to start. We need to become sovereign individuals again. Yeah. That cannot be bought, purchased, swayed, convinced. Like, we can have that head on our shoulders again. Yep. And then if we're holding ourselves accountable to, then we can hold our local politicians accountable. Then we can hold state.
Because we'll have standards.
Exactly.
And we can hold those leaders accountable to those standards. Yes. And because they're not going to get our vote unless they know they live up to our standards, right? So it really is reverse engineered. I love how you said that. And doing the Solid 30 Challenge, so we're officially launching it today. You can start it whenever you want. Mm-hmm. I started it 2 days ago just to kind of get a feel for it. And what I'm loving about it for me is I've got to focus on a couple of those areas. Some of them are easy for me because I've already been doing them really, haven't had to think about them. Like I pretty much have a routine when I get up. I go get my cold plunge in. I get my fitness stuff, workout in. Yeah. I'll go for a run or mountain bike ride and listen to an audio book. And then I'll read my scriptures and pray. Yeah, so those things I just do. But what I've had to, I guess, I serve my family every day. But it's good to have. Okay, did I do something maybe a little extra special today? It gives me that extra little.
You live with push. Intention.
Yeah, that's exactly.
I think that's the main message. Is like the Solid 30, because I did my first one today. That's why I got the hat on.
Yes.
I'm just more intentional about the day, and also. Because I know Brandon and Jeff and Mal's over my shoulder too, because she's doing it as well. Yep. So it's like, now I'm accountable. Like, that's the thing that's missing. And so I think if we're going to end the episode today, it'd be like, do the Solid 30 and come join us so we can be accountable together. Mm-hmm. And then let's take that mindset too. Like, if we are the best versions of ourselves we can possibly be, and if we're holding our institutions, if we're holding our religious leaders accountable, great. If we're holding our friends accountable, let's hold our politicians accountable. Let's be accountable, and let's hold other people accountable.
And I think the best way to hold someone accountable is just by being the right guy, right, or the right gal. Yeah. And if we can just be the right people, that automatically inspires that accountability.
It does.
And yeah, man, anything you're doing something, anytime you're trying something new, I've had some people call and say, well. Or text me or call me and say, hey, I want to do this challenge, but I've got this thing coming up in 2 weeks. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this or that while I'm on this trip or this business trip or I'm traveling. What do I do? And my advice would be just start. You know, like give you an example. I'm going on a youth camp out this next week. I'm just helping out with some of the young men that we're going out there with. We're going to do some shooting with them. And I have no idea if there's going to be anywhere to get a cold plunge in, So it's going to be, we'll have to see, right? But I'm not going to wait till after that to start. I'm going to start, and then hopefully I can figure out a way to get a cold plunge in. And worst case, if I can't, guess what I get to do? I get to start over after that, right? Yeah. So I'm not above anybody else. I'm going to start, and I'm going to do my best. And for the most part, I think I can, hopefully there's a stream or something that I can jump in. Man. We'll figure it out, hopefully. But again, if not, I'll do everything I can do for sure. Yeah. So anyway, I just think we all you gotta start. You can't wait for the perfect time.
Action is always, if you hesitate, like if you're trying to steal a base in baseball, like, or you're trying to, get in on an investment or something like that. Action is like hardly ever wrong.
Yep.
Take action. And then if you got to reset and rethink and readjust, do it.
Right. Another thing too is the mental capacity it takes to start something new sometimes can overtake your whole day, right? Yeah. But it's not like that forever. It's just like that until you develop the skill set and the habit to do it. So, in the beginning, if you feel like, man, it's because some people think I'm too busy to do solid 30, maybe they think you're too busy, and maybe you think that, but I would be willing to bet if you will just start it and make it a priority. Within a week or so, it'll just become part of your routine, and it'll make the rest of your life better.
Dude, absolutely.
Right.
Well, man, thanks for having me on. It's cool to be in this chair.
Yeah.
And not in that chair.
We'll have you on again. Yeah. There's a lot of other stuff we could definitely talk about. I mean, you're also successful in business. You've done well with you've sold windows for the last few years and done really well with that. You're great with your people skills. You've led teams. You've got leadership skills and a lot of things we didn't get into today. So
I know. I hope the vibe of this episode, if you're still with us listening, I'm not a negative person, even though we discuss a lot of kind of negative, kind of scary topics. Like, man, that makes my skin crawl.
Yeah.
I think that's the best way to get stronger. The best way to combat this is just awareness. And there's a lot more topics I'd love to cover on your podcast when we have time. I have to be careful what I say about certain things because still have some things in motion, still have some people in that game and contractor agency kind of guys that I got to be respectful of. So
yes.
Yeah, I hope I didn't come off as
no. I think it was great, man. I appreciate you being on.
But it was fun, dude. I love talking about this stuff. So just remember, 9/11 was an energy weapon from space. That's all I have to say.
Okay, we'll end with that. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, dude.